Tonight, we have been talking to you about our docuseries, Rising Up. Well, episode 3 airs tonight, and it digs into and reflects on the social justice movement ignited by the murder of George Floyd and how far we've come since then as a nation. In tonight's episode, the deep conversation of policing. To preview some of what you'll hear, we asked Riverside's police chief to join us. Please welcome Chief Larry Gonzalez. By the way, he's a 28-year veteran of the Riverside Police Department, and he is a nationally recognized expert in the matters of use of force, nationally and also state recognized. Chief Gonzalez joins us now from Riverside. Hi, Chief. Nice to see you. Good morning.
Morning, Michaela. Nice to see you.
And you know what? Right off the bat, I just want to thank you for being willing to have a conversation with me about this, because you and I think, are of the same mind that we're not going to get anywhere if we don't start talking, right, and continue the conversation and the dialogue, even though it's hard and it's uncomfortable and we might not always agree.
Absolutely. And just kind of a historical perspective for the Riverside Police Department is, you know, in 1998, we had the shooting of Taisha Miller with our police officers involved.
Yes.
If you remember, that resulted in us in a consent decree. And basically, we were Minneapolis in 1999. We had the national attention. And at that time, we did not really have the relationships established well enough in our community to get through something like that. So it was like almost too little too late when we're trying to meet with community members after this incident had happened. So we've worked diligently and very hard over the last 20 some odd years. I was a police officer at the time here in Riverside, and it's nice to see that evolve to where we've made a very conscientious effort to make sure we do attend all community meetings. We are engaged with our community, not just, you know, neighborhood communities, but grassroots communities, faith-based communities, business community, NAACP, ACLU, anything you can think of. We want to have representation there, so we have that relationship with our community. That way, when we do come in on a 2020 year, we can sit down and have a good dialogue session and find some common ground.
Right, because you have relationships established in the community with those people, with those leaders, with those faith-based leaders. Now, yet still, there are conversations in departments across the country about reform, right? And even in your own community, there's a police reform task force that has come up with a list of some 5 recommendations. And I know you and the City Council have had a chance to look at some of the recommendations. And there's a few of them, I mean, obviously, all of them impact the work that you do within your department and how you work with your officers. And I thought we could talk to you about a few of the task force recommendations. Among them, in fact, this is such a good topic for you because of your recognition as a use of force expert. They're suggesting recommending changes to disciplinary actions and changes to hiring and screening of new officers. You have unique perspective on that recommendation.
Well, absolutely, and it's something that we can engage with a task force and talk about different avenues we can pursue when it comes to hiring or our training. I know with these recommendations, like I said, they came to council a couple months ago. They pulled it at the last minute because they wanted to engage more community members, different parts of the community, as well as the active Community Police Review Commission, the Oversight Commission. But definitely, these are things we would love to explore. We're all about that at the Riverside Police Department. And when we talk about, you know, one of their main focuses with the task force was the Community Police Review Commission, our civilian oversight.
Right.
That's very nice for a police chief to be able to talk about that. I do have civilian oversight in my department, and we've had it for 20 years. So they review every single citizen complaint against a Riverside police officer, as well as every officer-involved death by a Riverside police officer.
Now, there's another... Sorry, I want to sort of tick through a few more of these things. We know that there's a lot of conversation about reallocation of budgets. We hear in other areas that call for defunding of police. What do you hear when you hear that term, defund police? Because there's some nuance that's necessary here.
Well, of course, I don't really like to hear the defunding or reallocate, however you want to say it. I can just tell you from personal experience that when we went through, I'll take you back to 1998 again, when we went through our consent decree or stipulated agreement, we became a much better department, have continued to be a better department over the years, but it wasn't from defunding us. It was from adding additional officers, adding additional equipment, adding additional tools for officers to use. So I understand when they talk about defunding or maybe reallocating, and we have done that to a certain extent with giving up a couple police officer positions last year to fund some social workers or street nurses, which will help or help supplement our already active public safety engagement team that does homeless outreach on a regular
Can
basis.
we sort of talk about the point that maybe I think what you're also acknowledging is that there are just some things police officers shouldn't be asked to have to do, right? There's a lot being thrown at you. You mentioned some of the social service stuff and nurses and even others have pointed to mental health experts being pulled in instead of sending a uniformed armed officer to respond to some of those calls.
Yes, we're all about that. And we do have, like I said, the public safety engagement team for us is equipped with mental health clinicians, as well as other social workers that go out on a regular basis. And I'm asking for even more. I'd like to get even more on that team because it's something that we deal with on a regular basis.
Chief Gonzalez, look, we could talk more about this. So obviously, there's a lot for us to get to this morning on a news show, but it does offer us a conversation about this, and hopefully it'll open the door for further conversations. I'd really like that if you're willing.
Absolutely.
Okay. Chief Larry Gonzalez from the Riverside Police Department, an inflection point certainly in the nation as we talk about policing in America.